And I have to tell you that I am a real novice in the medical tech business. I came through a very unusual kind of a path. My husband had Alzheimer's, and he was in an Alzheimer's facility for 5 years. So I was there every morning having breakfast with him, and there was a man that was always shouting, very agitated, and he was disturbing everybody, and I just instinctively went over and rubbed his back, and he got very quiet. And then when I got tired and I left, as soon as I stopped, he started shouting again, and I realized that we really needed a mechanical hand. And that was unburdened by any knowledge of inventions or business. I'm really an educational therapist, and I was the founding president of the association, so I had a lot of experience dealing with people, but I had no experience with medical devices. So this was the first thing that I decided I'm going to try to work on. And the Soother is a mechanical hand, and it's designed to simulate the soothing of a back rub so that it could calm agitated individuals. And first, let me talk to you about what agitation is. It's a state of restless anxiety and motor activity, a symptom of a mood disorder with internal tension. That's the definition of agitation. And it's also a very common behavior seen in many medical conditions. Now, I've told you where it came from, and I thought of all the families at home that could not afford to put their dementia patients and agitated Alzheimer's patients in any facility, and they were home alone with these very agitated patients that they could not control. And I learned that 16 million people provide unpaid care for people who really need to be in a care facility. So there's a huge market for people who really have no way to comfort agitated patients. In the antipsychotic medication seems to be the only alternative for conditions of agitation. And I don't know if we're going to have, hold on, because I'm kind of new at how this all works. There's a picture of the projected Soother, and you can see the devices. I was able to get a patent, and it's a very interesting reason that I got this patent, because my business advisor, Doug, who's sitting down there, happened to know an astronaut. And when I sent the information in to get to the patent office, they rejected it, and I showed it to this astronaut, and he said, "I'll write you the appeal." And he wrote this appeal, and I immediately got a full patent for this device. So it's pretty amazing that thanks to Doug and this astronaut, I was able to get that. You know, have any of you experienced the kinds of medication that they give for antipsychotic? Have you experienced that with any family members? The medications are so horrendous, and this is totally all mechanical. Let's just see if I can, okay, what do we need to know? Let's go to the next picture here. I want to tell you that I am, as I said, I'm unburdened by any knowledge of business. So please be patient with me as I try to explain all this to you. But consider all the other conditions that also have the symptom of agitation. And this is a picture of my husband and myself, and I've told you the story of how I came to have this decision. But let's see if we can go to the next slide. Maybe I'm going the wrong way here. Please be patient with me. Okay. This gives you an idea of the possibility of conditions that the Soother could address for agitation: dementia, autism spectrum disorders, anxiety, chronic pain, schizophrenia, and impulse control disorders. And when you consider the massive numbers of people who have this condition. Agitation is described as a state of restless anxiety and motor activity, a symptom of a mood disorder with internal tension. And it's very common behavior in all of these conditions that you see listed there. How does it work? And for those of you who would like to try it, you could see it in our booth. We have the device there attached to a wheelchair, but it can be attached to any kind of a chair. It doesn't have to be a wheelchair. And it can either work mechanically or battery powered or plug-in, but any of those possibilities can happen. The remote control and the on and off switch can be controlled either by the caregiver or by the patient, him or herself, depending on whether they are capable of doing that sort of device. And who are we looking for at this point to make this device a reality? We're looking, of course, for those of you who see the amazing potential for this, for DMA licensees and investors for manufacture and marketing. And as Doug has said to me, we'll take all the friends we can get, and that's really true. I wish that, have any of you been able to stop by the booth and try the Soother itself? Have you sat down to try and see what the motion is? Any of you had an opportunity to do that? I think that the main thing that I have seen is that when a person feels that there is some human touch that connects that patient who's so agitated, that they immediately feel that kind of care that we can't just get from talking to a person. There needs to be some kind of feeling, and touch is an amazing connection for people who, many of them who haven't had a human hand on their back. I happen to work a great deal with people who have learning disabilities and people who have autism. And this is a group that also, many times, the families call me and say, is there anything that we can do that would deal with their agitation, because it's a very common symptom. So that's the main thing that I wanted to tell you. And I think, let me just see if you see this story. Let's see if there's the, and you've got all that information, what you need to know.
Go the other way.
Go backward?
No, that was backward. Go forward.
Oh, sorry. I'm not very good at these devices. We've talked about that and how the Soother works. I really wanted to make this a very short presentation because I wanted you to think about the idea of human touch and the massive numbers of people who have the major symptom of agitation, and nothing can calm them. And this was really quite accidental, that I happened to be in the right place at the right time and saw that just the movement of a hand on a back could change the behavior of so many people in this facility. So I really would like to ask you if you have any questions that are more specific. Does anyone have any questions that you'd like to ask? Yes?
I was thinking about this, is it just the soothing hand motion, or is it also the conversation that happens at the same time?
Well, it's the soothing hand, but also on the device there's an attachment for having either music along with it or a conversation or anything that you might have. But the soothing hand itself was what brought the stopping of the agitated behavior. And we really were surprised at how that happened in the earlier versions of the device. And it was quite remarkable. Have any of you ever had a situation where you asked somebody to give you a back rub? Can you describe the feeling that you had from it? Anybody want to talk about that? Have you ever had a good back rub? Very gentle? Yes? I don't know whether that's been your experience, but for these people with dementia, and as I say, my husband was there for 5 years. He was a professor of psychiatry at UCLA. was a rather ironic ending for his life. But to be able to see the response of human beings just to the tender motion on a back, and realizing that no one caregiver could deliver that for any length of time. The numbers of caregivers, there's 16 million people who need care, and that there just aren't enough people who have any money to be able to provide that kind of care. So I'm going to make it a very short talk, but does anybody have any questions that you want to know about it or anything else? Pardon? Yes, in the back. Would you speak a little louder?
Yes. How would you get access to it when it's available?
How do you get what?
How do you get access to that device?
She'd like to see if the product could be used outside.
Oh, how do you get access to the product? Yes, it's right there in our booth. So any of you who want to go and try it out, and you see my engineer is there, and he created this artificial hand, and so you could see how it works. Anybody else have? Yes?
But is it already in the marketplace?
No. It's just the prototypes, and part of the reason that we're here is because I want people to know about it, and I want your feedback about what you think is the possibility of it really becoming a reality, and whether any of you have had any experience with dementia patients where there's nothing but these terrible antipsychotic pills that really are so overwhelmingly negative. This is something that's totally drug-free. Anybody else have any more questions? So I hope you'll stop by our booth.
Show them the last slide.
Pardon? Last slide? Okay, you can tell I'm not so good at these presentations. Oh, yes, that's just, oops. This one, Doug?
That'd be good.
Okay, that's my name, Dorothy Ungerleider. That's Doug Levison, my wonderful businessman, and my amazing engineer is out at the booth. And that's Doug's, you can come by the booth and get cards and phone numbers if anybody wants more information.